Thanks everybody for organizing this amazing event. And I just want to do a shout out to Haley Sharif, who pulled me into Hewitt. This is my second visit here, and it's really exciting to be here. So this is my website, and I was actually the first person to blog about green issues for women. And that's pretty exciting, and it's pretty amazing to be able to say that, but how did I get here? And so the topic of today's talks is breakthroughs, and I was asked to contribute what my breakthrough was originally to the website prior to today, and I kind of freaked out a little bit because I don't know that I've had my breakthrough yet, or maybe, and this is what I figured out later, I've had several mini breakthroughs. So I'm going to kind of tell you guys my path and then what those mini breakthroughs are, so that way, in case you're waiting for your one big breakthrough, you realize that maybe it's smaller breakthroughs coming together. So I was born to some really outdoorsy parents. My dad is a surfer. My uncle was an arborist. My grandmother was a gardener. Really, environmentally oriented family. So eating healthfully, living outdoors, unstructured time in the woods was how I grew up. Hence, before it was cool and popular, my name is Starre. And so when I was a kid, that was actually like really weird, and I got, teased a lot. But it kind of works for me now doing what I do, right? So I grew up with all these great influences and always felt a really strong attachment to the environment. I grew up in Garrison, New York in the Hudson Valley. Some of you guys might know it if you take the Hudson line up north. And I was very attached to that place. Also my family in Australia. Half my family is Australian, half my family is from New York. So in Australia, I was outside in the ocean. Here, I was outside in the woods and the snow and all that great stuff. So I went to high school. I went to college with the idea of being a science person. I wanted to do research. I wanted to be a doctor. Wasn't sure how it was going to happen, but science seemed to be the way to express this interest and love for the environment. Came out of college with 2 degrees. I had a BS in geology, which is what I was going to really use. But I had this gut instinct when I was in my sophomore year, and I thought, I really want to do, I love writing and I love reading, so I'm going to do a BA also, but that's just for me. That's not something I'm going to do in the future. That's going to be to make myself happy while I'm in college, and then I'm going to do my science as my serious work. So I also got a BA in English. So that was one little mini breakthrough. I kind of listened to my gut, and then I went and I got a job after college. I was an environmental scientist for a very short period of time before I realized that was not what I wanted to do. The type of work that I was going to be expected to do day to day, the actual job of being an environmental scientist, didn't seem creative. It didn't seem fun. It wasn't the kind of work that I wanted to do. So I kind of freaked out a little bit and did a little environmental education and took a job doing editorial work and was trying to figure out well, how do I take all of this love and passion I have for environmental stuff, and I want to do creative and writing. How do I put that together? So my next kind of breakthrough was that I was working as an editorial assistant at the JCC in Manhattan on 76 in Amsterdam, and my really good friend there was a webmaster for the JCC and also started blogs. He was a blogger. He started blogs for other people, and this was in 2002. And so early days of the internet still. Very exciting. And I kept poking my nose into his office and being like, what are you doing? And can I do that? And he said, yes, please. I have this site. It's about politics. We have 9 guys and no women. You should totally be on our team. And so this was just something I did through a coworker. And that was another little breakthrough. I was like, oh, I can actually do something that I love, but that doesn't really have anything to do with my day job, and find it super rewarding. So I did that, and he is still my friend, this person I met, Dan Saradsky, and he is actually the webmaster for my sites to this day. So early connection, kind of again, sort of following my gut. Oh, I'm really interested in this. My day job's kind of this other thing. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I went on to work for an animal rights organization, thinking maybe I want to be more activist-y. And then I worked with a screenwriter for doing screenplays for Hollywood, and we worked with Leo DiCaprio's people, and it was all super fabulous, except, again, I realized that I didn't really want to work with the Hollywood folks. And it was a little bit of a superficial crowd. There was a lot of worrying more about how things were going to be sold than the content itself, and that kind of just wasn't my thing. So one job after another job, and I'm thinking, gee, I really, like, when am I going to figure out what I'm going to do with myself here? And so I took a job editing a kid's classroom magazine, Current Events. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen it, but it's like a history magazine for junior high and high school students. And so I'm doing this educational writing, and this whole time I just continue to freelance and write about food, and I write about this and that, and I can't seem to put it all together, but I just keep doing stuff. I keep saying yes to everybody that asks me to write for them. So I figure at least it's practice. So I, all this time, had been blogging on my friend's site, and I started writing for an environmental magazine, and they only came out every other month, and I thought, gee, like, I have all this really good information coming across my desk, but I only have a very short amount of space in which to write things every other month for a small magazine. And then I'd already been blogging. So my next breakthrough was a combination of really wanting to start my own project and knowing somebody who knew how to help make that happen. And so I asked my friend Dan, who I'd been blogging with, will you help me start my own site? And he was, sure, it'll take me, 4 hours, and I'll do a custom WordPress site for you. So I said, let's go for it. And we sat together, and it took more than 4 hours. It probably took like 8 or 9 straight one evening, and I bought him lots of food. But we got it up. And that coincided with the fact that at my day job, my boss was not challenging me and not giving me enough work. So I had to be sitting at this desk, and I had to be there from like 8:30 to like 5:30, but I didn't have enough work to fill it in. And like at first that sounds cool, like you can read, you can, like chat with your friends online, but actually it's terrible after the first couple weeks. You sit there and you have nothing to do. So that gave me the time and space I needed to work on my own blog at my job, which of course I don't recommend to anybody, but that's how it happened for me. So I was the first person to do that. There were some sites like Tree Hugger that had just started. There was a site on peak oil. It was all very serious environmental coverage, and the environment is a very serious subject. But I thought there needed to be a place for women because some of my friends who I knew were really big environmentalists were into these subjects, felt like all of these sites were really a bunch of guys sitting around, and they didn't feel super comfortable going in and commenting. And so I wanted to make a place that was both for women and about the things that I was passionate about. Take all this information that I already was sort of getting via email and people who knew that I wrote for this magazine, and I put it all together and I started EcoChick. So 6 years later, my site has continued to flourish. I now have an employee who helps me do outreach, and I continued to also work at some regular jobs. I decided to go to grad school, so I did a Master of Fine Arts at Columbia to really work on the craft of writing because I'd been a science major. And I thought, wow, I really want to become more of a creative person and get to study that, and so I did. And that was an amazing, incredible, rewarding experience. And again, did that make sense? Was that part of like a plan or career path? Not really. It was just listening to my own inside intuition telling me that maybe my next step should be something where I could really sink my teeth into creative work. Kept my site going the whole time, kept freelancing for other people, really got known as being an expert in eco-fashion, natural beauty, and sort of women's interest environmental subjects is sort of the umbrella that I would call it. So one of the criticisms that I've gotten over the years, of course being somewhat of a public person with a blog and all of this is, well, if you're such a serious environmentalist and you're passionate about this and your family is all about this stuff, why are you covering eco-fashion and natural beauty? Why aren't you covering more serious subjects? You have a background in science. You should be doing more hardcore reporting. And I say it's because there's not very many people who actually do have a science background and are serious science and environmental people that are covering these areas. And it's really important that we do because fashion and our clothing, if you want to take the F word out of it, our clothing that we wear every day is the third or fourth largest production business in the world. So if you look at energy, if you look at water, if you look at any of the major resources we use, fashion uses either is third or fourth on the list after like digging oil out of the ground and stuff. And that's because whether you're a man or a woman, everybody gets dressed every day. Everybody has to wear clothes all the time. even in places where you don't need to wear many clothes, you still have to wear some. And especially in the Western world, we tend to have many more clothes than we maybe need. And so this is actually an important and huge industry. I mean, think about every time you walk into, let's say, H&M, and multiply that by millions of stores around the planet. What we wear and how we dress and the makeup and hair stuff and shoes and all that stuff, tremendous impact on the environment. And that's why I think that this actually is an incredible issue to cover in the way that we do on my site. And again, my last little breakthrough was, I thought, I've been doing this for a while, what's my next step? What am I supposed to be doing with myself? And something that I've always loved that I hold close to my heart is traveling. And if you guys wouldn't mind pulling up my new site, I started another website. It's still kind of in beta. It's called EcoChick Escapes, and it's all about ethical travel. I decided I'm actually an expert traveler. I've been going back and forth to Australia since I was a kid. That's always been a huge part of my family's agenda. That's where we spent holidays, and all our extra money was like, we're going to take this amazing trip. So how can I put those things together with my interests and get to travel and maybe spend a little bit less time behind my desk? So I launched a new site. It's just getting off the ground. It's really exciting. There's not too many people that are covering style and travel and ethics and sort of putting them all together. So again, I'm looking for that little niche for myself that sets me apart, that also is all about my own mini breakthroughs, my own small interests coming together into what I guess has kind of been a big breakthrough in my life, starting out from being a science person and being very hardcore about that to being a creative blogpreneur, starting to employ people of my own and moving forward in a new media landscape like we just heard Carolyn talk about for HuffPo. So those are my breakthroughs. That's how I brought them together. And I don't think you have to have one big breakthrough. You just have to have an understanding of your own process. And so for me, it's always little steps and little breakthroughs. Thank you so much.